In this part of the tutorial, we want to give our player health. So let's finish off the enemy some, and then we're going to add health. We're going to add some other HUD elements. How about experience? What's an RPG without some type of experience and a way to gain it? We're going to make sure we can kill off the enemy when we do the stabby with the sword. And we are going to make ourselves realize our RPG is excellent. All right, let's get going. And here we are back in our code. If you don't have this, you need to go check out the earlier videos. But let's dive right into our game. And now with our weapons and our player and our enemy in place, we should start to work on, well, the blood. Because we're fighting, we want the user to know when they have impacted the enemy. That being said, we can also update our enemy a bit right down here in collision. We don't want the player to be able to endlessly push and shove on the enemy. Thankfully, we already have a way to control this. And that is with our target collision. Okay, so with our target collision down here, we could set it up here to be only if target collision is false. And what that will do is make sure that the user can't hit the guy 9 times in a millisecond and send them flying. It's only going to allow it once. It will push the enemy back, and then it will reset, and you can do it again. So that means inside of this, target collision will be set to true. And with target collision set to true now, we won't be able to endlessly hit upon our enemy. It will then run invoke, and let's do invoke actually more at 0.5 for this float, and then we won't need the debug right now. And then we'll set it to false after half a second. We might want to mess with the speed then, or the thrust that we are adding. What are we adding? Yes, thrust. So I might turn this down to 1.5. Let's check that out. Let's just make sure to save everything. Let me shrink this guy down, and let's hit play. Boom, boom. This is looking good. And yes, our enemy comes back, and that will actually be damaging us. We can hit with a sword. We are on our way to a game. Let's add some blood. First, we're going to do it for the enemy. It's going to be a create sprite. And I'm just going to call this enemy blood. Makes sense to me. And sprites, let's go here and let's do blood. And then I'm going to search specifically for sprites. Remember, if you don't do that, it can cause disaster. Okay, let's see what we got. I'm liking this one, so I'm going to drop it in here. Let's locate this. Right over our enemy. I'm going to set it to enemy. We just need it over the enemy. I will set it to 1. Whoops, and that's a little bit much. So I'm going to scale that down to a, 0.5. And 0.5. You can kind of pick what you like here. Let's rotate it -60. Or 45. Or that. Yeah, something like that. And this will just pop up. Actually, I'm going to have it pop up on the dude's head when the guy gets hit. Right about here. And so we'll have that be triggered when they are contacted. So I'll just hide the sprite render for now. And then within the enemy script, let's go ahead and on collision, take damage. And so when you take damage, when the enemy takes damage, we're also then going to have their child component appear. And to do that, all we have to do is transform.get child, and then which index will 0, because we only have one child, but it's also at the 0 index game object. Ooh, should we just set it active and inactive? Yeah, let's do that. Set active to true. Boom. And then we're going to use invoke, right, like this. I'm just going to do a copy and a paste. I'll probably do 0.25. This function's going to be a private one, but it will just be void hide blood. And all it will do is take this and hide it false. That way the player can kind of be alerted to when they have a hit. This is all looking good. Let me hit save. And let's give it a shot. Boop. And so we should enable the renderer, but disable the entire thing and hit run. Rah, rah. And notice it pop up. This way the user can be alerted to when the enemy is hit. Now we should have the same thing for the player. So I'll do the same thing. Hopefully we never get hit as the player. And I'm going to use a more traditional red for the human. Sure. Let's see where our player is. And player, I'll order. Oh, blood should be. There it is. We're going to scale that down. I'm going to put it up on the head again. Something like this. I might scale it. Cool, let's check that out. Oh, we have to enable it with code. Right. And so we want the player to bleed when the enemy gets to our player. So then within player, we need an on collision. And we already have the box glider here. So all we're going to need to do, on collision 2D enter. Compare tag is better than tag. Unity gets frustrated if you use tag. Compare tag is going to be more exact. So if the enemy hits us, what do we want to do? Well, let's go look at our enemy script here. We're going to do essentially this, right? So I'm going to grab this. And I'm going to say copy, go with player, and then enemy, yikes. I'm going to hit paste and transform. Yep, that's what we need. I'll just change this to say player, just for clarity's sake. Paste there. And enemy, and save all that. Okay, let's check it out. And we should start with not the player disable, but the blood. Ow! Ow! No, you mean zombie! Ah! It's a battle. Alright, and that means we are going to be ready for our player health at this point. The easy part is just adding the integers, of course, getting these numbers on here, that we can do, I mean, super fast. Variable health equals, we'll say 100, right? And then, oh, need to make sure that's an int. Look, the player has health. And then we can set up take damage, just like we did for the enemy, or we could do it on our own within collision. And now there's not much sense though in taking damage right now because we don't even know when the player is. Just make sure I saved all this. Let's go ahead and add some stuff to the HUD, or I guess add our HUD canvas, and get a health bar on the screen. So I'm going back over here, canvas, and I'm going to put the word HUD for heads up display in front of this. And that is great. And for our canvas, well here, let me show. It's enormous. That's actually not what we're going to do for this game. We want screen space to camera. What camera? Well, the handy dandy main camera. Let's go ahead and do HUD canvas again. Oh, look, a bit more reasonable. And then our screen size, we want to scale it. And then our screen size is 1920 by 1080. And that should set us up there. Sorting layer HUD. Oh, do we not have that? Oh, we should have that. We want to make sure. HUD on top of everything. Heads up, display. HUD, UI is fine. That's fine as well. Okay, great. Now let's go ahead. We're going to want images actually. So we're going to go create 2D, nope, UI, image, and click. So all we got is this square. What we're going to drag into it though is, oh, actually we need health bars. There's not really good options within this pack. However, I have some already. They're Creative Commons 0, so they're public domain. And like all the assets I'm using, they will be linked in the description. I was really liking this health bar. I might use the glass as well. Let's go over here to sprites. And I'll just drag them directly into here. So I guess we could do vertical. We'll have some options. I'm just going to drag all this. And while I'm dragging all that, I'm going to make a folder. And there we are. We can get rid of that. Our image here. Let's see, I was liking 1. So I'm going to grab this and pull it up in here. Probably not exactly how we want it, but we'll work on that. Let's make sure, though, with this sprite, well, let's go ahead and get it in place. So we're going to want it down here, over here-ish, down there, right? And the width is, I don't know, 350, and height is 50 maybe? Something like that. I am definitely liking. And this has 2 bumps right here, so what can get in the way sometimes is how the sprite sets us up with those bumps. So I'm going to go ahead and just do sprite editor and make sure I bring these in right to here, because I don't really want to be messing with those edges. Or if I do, you just want to be directly on top of them with how we will be manipulating the sprite. All right, let's apply. Okay, and then we also need a background for our health. Let's see how this is looking. You know, we could actually go a bit smaller. Let's do 256, and then maybe something more like 40? Yeah. I'm going to pull this up here. And I'm liking this because we're going to have experience under it. And then we also are going to need to duplicate this image. Duplicate. So this is going to be health fill. And this is going to be health background. Now, health background needs to be a bit bigger. So I don't know, maybe 262, 46, something like this. And then let's give it a dark color. And then we want to set this. So this will be behind fill. And it's so the player can see as they lose health that there, well, used to be health there. Okay. So I am liking that, and that's all labeled correctly. Let's go ahead and add a actual label here, HP, and then something for experience points. So that's going to require some text. And then, I don't know, we're going to start this at 65. And then let's make sure we need to overflow an overflow, otherwise you won't see it when it's too large. There it is. Zoom out here. And then I'm going to say its color is going to be 100% white, and I might make it larger. All right. And then I think I already imported my fonts. Again, though, like everything else I did, they are CC0 free to use. I'll have them in the description. And I think, actually, I like that. I'm going to go with this one, Baron. And we'll have this be the health text, so that's looking good. I might even select all these and move them over a bit. Great. And then, like I said, I want to have experience as well. Let's just say HP. EXP label. Probably right there, so that means all of this is getting moved up higher. I'm just holding Shift to select all those. And then I'm going to go ahead and duplicate this. Let's put their starting at 000. And experience amount. And just to clarify this, I might actually, for the label, do that. And let's see, for the amount, we're going to want it. Yeah, that's great. That's great. Boom. And we have a bit of a HUD. Looks like it's all going to need to come up a little bit, over a bit, before I'm satisfied. Awesome. And now we get to actually make that health, well, drop as we are attacked. And so the first thing we're going to do to have access to health is, well, we need to go into the player script, and we're going to want to add a public variable for the image that the health bar is. So, and we'll get to what I was just doing. And see how it says this right here? I want to point this out. Unity UI, we don't have it up here. So I'm going to go ahead and copy, paste, .ui. Okay. And then now Unity image. Okay. And that will be the health fill. And we also are going to need to know the original size of health fill. So let's do a And what I did here is I said, all right, make this float. And then when this program starts, it's going to do health width will be set to be equal to the health fill.sprite rectangle width. So the width of that rectangle, the rectangle of the sprite. And what sprite? Well, this one. So let's go to our, right here, our health fill. This is the image we are talking about. And it's a bit strange that we're saying sprite, but I promise that's what we need. So now let's head over to the player and drag over our health fill right here. And now let's go back into our code. We have all that set out. Now, where do we want to have health fill be impacted? Well, I want it to change when the player collides with an enemy, because that means the enemy is successfully attacking. And so what I'm going to be adding here, we're going to want to change the size of the health bar. I'm going to take away 10 for each hit, we'll say, and we can fiddle with that if we don't feel like that's right for the game. And then once we take that away, though, we're also going to need to make sure we update health fill. This might get it easier. I'm doing this just so we can see it all. So health fill.transform.delta, and now we're going to see it equal to this temporary vector2 up here. Boom. And that should have our size adjust accordingly. So let's make sure to save all of this and check it out. So now when the enemy contacts us, our health should drop off. You know, this bar is looking somewhat wide. I'm going to something maybe more like that I like. Let's see. Oh no! Oh no! Oh no! And blood and and brah. So we have a problem. Neither character can ever die. So it's some murdering time. Now, for our main character, we should display some text at the top here. And honestly, I'm going to steal one of these. The label, sure. Duplicate. I'm going to pull this guy up here. And I want this font size to be, I don't know, 250. And let's get out of the game. Uh-oh, game over. And I'm doing this so I can just center it. And yep, something like that. And then I'm going to go ahead and main text. And let's go ahead and hide this, disable it. And now within the player, we want to check after we take away from health to make sure the player is still alive. So we're going to disable the health if it's less than 1. Let's go ahead and add something for text width. And we're going to set main text enabled and make sure it actually says game over. Now, if we wanted to have health be different than just the width of health, we can definitely do that. all we would need to do is keep track of the original health, divide the new health points by the original, and then multiply by health width. But health width is actually fairly straightforward, so I'm going to stick with that for now, but this health int is there. I'm going to increase a hit to 25. And now that's all good. Let's make sure to save everything. And I'm headed to player, and I need for my player to know what text is. But actually, let's double check this. Main, game over. Yeah, that's fine. Text. This is looking good. Let's go ahead and get some code down for it. And this is just to access that main text we just made. Main text. And keep in mind, we also have health right here, which we're going to use in just a sec. Let's scroll all the way down here. And yes, so we have the health width, which is fine to use if that is what you want to use for the actual health metric. However, I would like to use something like a health variable, and that's because this variable is going to be set to 100. It's easier to track than the width of this, which I did, what was it, 256 or something. Let's just make this a float, and let's go back down here. I'm going to switch out then health width for health, and just to make it more apparent, I'm going to take away 20 per hit right now, and then for health width, we would just again want this to be actually health, and for the amount of health taken away, let's go ahead and add this. So we have our enemy script, but we could also have the amount of health vary depending on the enemy. And so what we could do for this is have something that we could do public or private, honestly. Maybe I'll do private damage or strength or hit strength, attack strength. I'll say hit strength. And let's set this to be in int, and I'm going to actually make it equal to 20 for now. I need an equal sign. And we could make this public and have it accessible that way, but another way to do this, if you want to keep it private, you want to keep everything contained, I can do down here a public function. Like this. And then the player can grab hit strength. So now we can go all the way back here and have it so the player can access that like this. So health minus and now the player can get the individual hit strength of that particular enemy. And we can further build this out later on to give enemies types and different hit strengths. All right, with that set, now when health is less than 1, we want to keep in mind to adjust health width, then we're going to need to multiply this now by health over 100, because that's what we're starting health as, okay? And that's going to keep it so that our width is adjusted by the amount of health being changed. Health starts at 100, this is the change in health. Now let's make sure our text is set to active. So main text dot, and then let's just make sure our main text says game over. And this is looking good. Let's make sure to save all of this. Let's go ahead and head over here. And I need my player. And I need to set main text to, well, main text. And yes. And so we want to make sure this is not active. And let's try it out. Oh no. Game over. Perfect. And that worked as expected, right? We got 5 hits before we died. Of course, rah, rah, rah. All right, now let's cause some enemy murdering. So for this, we're going to head over to our enemy sprite. And let's do a death sprite. So let's actually add a couple. So we're going to do a death sprite, and then let's do, since we have several options for zombies, let's make it random which sprite is assigned for our enemy. And then to randomly assign the sprite at start, we would do sprites R&D, and now I need to define R&D. It will be an int, and for an int random, it's going to be equal to random.range. Int is inclusive here, so it can be, if I do 0, comma 4, that would go 0 to 3 for integers. Let's do 5, I guess, of these. Now, you can obviously just put random range inside of here, but it's nice to have it outside if you want to do debugging. So that should set that. And now the death sprite we want to occur upon enemy death. So let's check for enemy death. Where does the enemy get hurt? Right here. So with enemy 2, keep in mind we're using take damage, and in take damage we're actually passing the amount. We made a public function. 2 different ways to have sprites interact with one another. All right, now here's where the damage is done. So, yep, we want to make sure. Let's do less than 0. And then instead of hide blood, we're going to have something similar. I'm going to do a and this will be where the enemy dies. So, and then I'm going to do an invoke. I'm just going to copy this, paste, and I don't know, maybe I'll keep it around for 0.5 seconds. We do need to turn off the renderer, the collision, because we don't want to be able to collide with the spot the enemy used to be on. So to do that, and we would want enable to be equal to false to turn off the collider. All right, let's save all of this and check out our project. Okay, I'm going to hide the rigid body. So we need a def sprite, and then we can fill in other sprites for our def sprite. Ooh, you know what we should do, which is less dangerous than what I did, right? Here, when we assign random, let's, instead of going to 5, we should just do sprites.length, because then we know it will always just be the actual length of this array. For the def sprite, I'm going to actually do probably the same thing as its blood, just going to be larger. Oh, let me make sure these are sprites and not something else. And then for the sprites, let me chop them up real quick. Sprite editor, multiple. And the easiest way on these, again, was cell count. So I got a bit carried away there, but, you know, options. Okay, and let's test. Ooh, actually, before we do, we did destroy the character. Let me just make sure we destroyed. Remember how the blood is right here? We need to make sure that that is also going to be, yes, that's what I was thinking. I'm going to copy this. Oh, and then do we have a variable for the blood? We can just do how we have been with this. And then that will also destroy the blood. And we also need to set, oh, this is it, transform. Then we also need to set, yes, we also need to set a Boolean to control movement because we don't want the blood to be following the player around here. And so up here on update, where if not collision, we don't want to be moving even when the player is, when the enemy is dead. So let's set up a private boolean is dead is equal to false. And so if the enemy's in range, that's great. And is dead is false. So and they are not dead. We need both of those things to be true for the enemy to have movement. Where do we set is dead to false? Well, if health is less than 0, this is where I would want to set that up. I mean true. Let's take this collider, put it here. And I think, so we should have this all set. Let's do a look at the, yep, we want to hide the blood. We want to not hide blood. We want to do enemy death. So we need enemy death up here to occur. And what that's going to do again is destroy these objects. Oh, let's always put you don't want to destroy the parent object first. You always are going to want to destroy the child. So the computer knows, whoops. So the computer knows what we are talking about. Just delete this space. That's good. And then hide blood. Let's actually give it a full second before the enemy disappears on us. All right. Let's save all of this. And let me go ahead and go zoop and zoop. And let's give it a shot. Notice how the zombie changed there? Ah! And there we go. I might actually want to keep that blood around a bit longer. And that is something we can take care of next time. Also, we can take care of just one enemy. Having one enemy is great, but a dungeon crawler has a lot of enemies spawning. Make sure to hit like, make sure to hit subscribe. It gives me warm fuzzies and it is kind. If you have funny jokes or want to brag about the awesome thing you are making, you should comment below.